bring the meeting back to order? If not, let's close the doors.
Close the outside.
There's some seats in here, everybody. Want to wait till. Just gonna wait till Barbara comes in.
Jim, can you grab Barbara? Grab Barbara. You passed around.
I would reconvene our Schuylkill Board of Supervisors meeting. And we'll start at the beginning of the agenda, please. If anybody has their cell phones on, would you please turn them off? I'd appreciate it. I would ask for the acceptance of reports, the board supervisors minutes. Does anybody have any questions on those? And the budget meeting that was held on the 14th.
No, sir.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Second? Oh, yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Any 2-minute reports?
Just a summary of the regional planning. We, and I addressed that during the public hearing, but the Regional Planning Commission, Mr. Thurkoff, gave a very thorough and comprehensive overview of the zoning issue that we addressed, and we amended his report to not only include pending PennDOT approval of the improvements to the intersection at Pot House and the Route 29, but also Charlestown Road as well.
Okay. Any more 2-minute reports? Okay. I'd like to turn it over to our treasurer, who will give through the payment of the bills and the treasurer's report itself.
Our treasurer's report, we have a balance as of October 31st, 2014 of just under $2.5 million. We have balances in all of our other savings funds. We're actually in really good shape. The revenues for so far for this year, we're about just over 90%. And our general fund expenditures are at 74.5%. So we're actually in really good shape. I reviewed the bills this afternoon, and everything's in order and should be paid.
Okay.
Does anyone have any questions? Okay.
Do I hear a motion to accept the treasurer's report?
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Martha, would you please make a comment or two on the budget?
We had our budget meeting on October 14th. It was our budget, our budget workshop on October 14th. We reviewed it and approved it for advertising, and we will actually, we reviewed it and approved it for advertising, and it is being advertised right now, and it should be approved in our December meeting, our December 3rd meeting. There is no tax increase. There's no need for any loans or anything like that, and we're in good shape for next year.
I might add that it will be on our website for anyone to look at, please. You should be advised that this is the 7th year in a row that the township has not increased taxes. I don't know if you think it's important, but I do. I think it's very important. So you can see that, and we'll bring that up in the December's meeting. The the leaf yard reopened on November the 3rd for residential drop-off of leaves only. They visit the township recycling page on the website for the hours of operation.
Excuse me, Fred, we didn't vote to approve the treasurer's report,
Oh, we didn't?
did we?
Yes, we did.
Yes, we
All in
did.
favor?
I'm sorry. Forgive me.
The township leaf yard reopened, and the for residents on Saturdays from 8 to 12, November 8th, the 15th, the 29th, and December the 6th. That's for your leaf things.
I have an announcement or two also.
All right. The Valley Forge Fire Company Soup Sale and Craft Fair is Saturday, November 15th. Orders will be placed online at the fire company's website for pickup on November the 15th.
Yeah, from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m.
Okay. From 9 to
You
1?
Go online to the website, put what soup you want, and they'll have it ready for you. It's very good. Look at me. I haven't missed too many meals in my lifetime, and I like every soup that they have.
Aqua is going to be replacing a water main on Valley Forge Road and Cleona Avenue. That's Valley Forge Road and Cleona Avenue and White Horse Road. Please get that. That will be November the 17th, 2014, with completion expected in December.
We hope.
A detour will be in place during work hours for the project from 9 to 3. 9 to 3, starting November 17th, Valley Forge Road and Cleona Avenue and White House Road. There'll be a Freedom Trail Study Public Information Meeting Workshop on Thursday, November the 20th at 7:30 in the township, right here, the Township Hall. That's a Freedom Trail feasibility study. Do you want to say anything about that?
No, you've already stated it. We've had 2 meetings so far, and this is for the public to understand the nature of the feasibility study.
The Township Administration Office and the Roads Departments will be closed on Thursday, November 27th, and Friday, November 28th for Thanksgiving holiday, so you can remember that. If you want to stay in touch with our community and what we're doing, please join our mailing list of what we have. I think all of you have probably read the papers, but our Limerick NRC facility license was extended for 20 years. However, a week later, they found a problem. But they said there's no hike in the oversight, so they took care of that, but that's supposed to be taken care of. I hope you're well aware of the Cato Conference, which is tomorrow night. Mr. Morrison is a representative there, will be there at the meeting. Are you going to be going?
I will not.
Oh, no, you're not. That's right.
I'm going to the Phoenixville Library Wit and Wisdom event.
Thank you.
Is that a good excuse?
I am, I think
For
so.
a good cause.
I think I'll be there, too. You want to make an
Yes.
announcement about that? Go ahead.
Okay. I forgot to bring flyers along this evening. Given the number of people, I should have. But next Tuesday, November 11th, the Schuylkill River Heritage Center, of which I'm president, will be hosting Bob Folwell. He is the trail director. This goes back to 1990 through all of the 90s. There were three of us, Bob Folwell, myself, and Jane Davidson, who represented Chester County, going to Reading once a month for meetings to try and figure out how we could have a trail all the way from Pottsville to Philadelphia. I'm happy to say that that trail was approved by Governor Ridge in 1995, and since then, the Schuylkill River Trail, which eventually will be 120 miles, is now over 60 miles. And Bob Folwell will be presenting the progress that has been made in implementing this trail. And most especially for those of us in the region, the piece of the Schuylkill River Trail is completed between the Foundry and Crombie. So it's very exciting. He will be giving an update on that. And Phoenixville has just received $381,000 to connect the trail across the Montclair Bridge to the Canal Trail in Montclair. So there's some really very positive and exciting things happening. Please, this is 7:30 next Tuesday evening. The event is free and no registration is needed. So it should be an excellent presentation.
PECO's ready to meet the customer demand in this winter. They've got some comments out on it. If you haven't read it, it's important. Now is the time for customers to make steps ready for cold weather, so you ought to be aware of that. PECO's doing that. The Pennsylvania bill for municipal disaster aid was signed into law. The grant program will help local governments become victims of disasters that fall below the $17.5 million threshold for federal aid, and Corbett signed that, and it looks like we're going to get some help on that whatsoever.
I've got an announcement, Fred.
Okay?
It just has to do with, you know, we get reports from the various functions in the township, and one of those functions is approving building permits. Sounds like a dry subject, but since we're all concerned about power outages, we've got a major trend developing in the township where people are installing, and they need a building permit for this, whole house or partial whole house generators. And this last month we had 10 of those building permits approved. And we've already approved, I think, probably 30 plus within the last year. So it's a unfortunate thing that has to be done. Hopefully PECO is going to be improving the issue here, improving the power outage issue with this tree trimming, but absent that, some people are, you know, playing it safe, if you will.
Jim, it's all about convenience. If they have the discretionary income to put a whole house generator in, they put it in.
Yep.
Because the kicker is, at the end of the day, does anybody like it when the power goes out? No. If you have a whole house generator and you put it in, you have discretionary income to do it, they do it. And I'm lucky enough that we live in the Meadows Valley Forge where we have very few power outages, but when they do go out, they not weeks. Thanks, Pat, but not weeks, but they go out for we consider a long period of time, but it's a very short period of time versus the mountain. And
Yes,
last
we have a
winter,
supply of candles and flashlights
yeah,
in our house.
and the mountain had some major issues last year with regards to that ice storm that came through, and those guys were out of power for a very long period of time.
Yes, we were.
And we were out for maybe 2 days.
Very well noted in the permits in the last 2 months. There's been generators, there were 20 of them put in our township just last month, and there was another 10 or 15 put in this month. So somebody's got some money somewhere. So, and they're all ranging between, well, there's a few at 4,000, but mainly they're $8,000 or more of what they're putting in for 20 kWs. So very interesting to see what they're doing. Okay, anything else on that? Any public participation for anything on the agenda? No, you'll be in just a minute, Jim. You're next.
That's at the end.
That would be at the end.
That would be at the end.
Okay?
Fred, I have one more item if I could.
Sure.
On announcements.
Mhm.
Just to inform the folks here, as well as those watching on the video. There is now a renewed focus, if you will, on a Rails to Trails project from Phoenixville to essentially, ultimately, the Chester County Trail, which it's under discussion right now by, the lead is being taken by a consultant that's being paid for out of a grant. And there are 3 participating municipalities in this. There's Schuylkill, there's Phoenixville, and there's Charlestown. And ultimately, Tredyffrin will be brought into this at some point if and when the line gets that far, or the planning gets that far. But anyway, it's something that's really being talked about now, and it's consistent with the general planning of the Chester County Planning Commission to promote trails and trail networks in Chester County. And of course, we're probably all aware of the Chester Valley Trail, which has been recently inaugurated and installed. And I think we have our solicitor here who's actually gone pretty much the length of that, didn't he? Yeah. So anyway, that's my comment.
Anything?
Those trails generally the ones that are going around, what, the train tracks you're talking about?
You're right, the Norfolk Southern line is now basically almost abandoned, but not technically.
And that trail you were talking about from Reading on down, is that by the river? Is that generally going through public property?
It's a combination of easements and things, but a lot of public property, but it's hard to classify it because we're talking about 5 counties: Schuylkill County, Berks County, Chester, Montgomery, and Philadelphia. So obviously the what I call the old name of East River Drive or Kelly Drive has already been done. The piece of it through Manayunk through to Conshohocken has already been done, okay? There are pieces in Chester County, some of which have been done. The Toon Trail in Berks County between Pottstown, but not completely from Pottstown to Reading, have partially been done. Pieces of it in Schuylkill Township, I'm sorry, Schuylkill County are not yet completed. So that's why I'm looking forward to this, to see what has been done and what's not. There were, as I said, there were 3 of us who schlepped to Reading once a month for almost 10 years to get this thing going.
So you mentioned the Montclair Bridge, that somebody just got 300-some thousand.
Well, here's the thing. The Montclair Bridge, ancient history, Carol Rubley and I went to PennDOT when they were going to replace the Montclair Bridge in 1996. And we argued successfully for the first ever incentive contract to be let for someplace that wasn't like Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, because Coatesville was closed off for almost 2 years. We got that bridge closed from February to August, and it was an amazing feat. At the same time, we pushed for a sidewalk, which currently exists on that bridge. The width of the sidewalk, along with the side part of the roadway, is wide enough to incorporate a trail crossing from Phoenixville to Montclair. So I am very grateful to Representative Rubley, and actually who was then Senator Jim Gerlach, for actually lobbying for us to get this, because that was, again, part of the Schuylkill River Trail.
Okay, is that enough for the announcements? Anything else? Is that okay? Hang on for a minute. Do you have any more any public participation on any other agenda items? All right, next business is old business legal matters. Bill?
Just one thing, we had a successful result in the DePolo Towers case. The application for a tower of 190 feet was denied. Applicant was permitted a tower of 65 feet. Appeal is possible. One matter for executive session.
Thank you, Bill. All right, you're up, Mr. Keller.
65 feet?
Yeah.
That's great.
They won't be above the tree line.
Yeah, that's great.
Thank goodness.
I'd ask you one thing, Mr. Keller, before you get started. Have you read the letter from Mr. Pfeiffer that answered some of your questions?
No,
If not,
no, I haven't. When did he send it?
Why not?
I think it answers a number of your questions that you already have.
November 2nd.
Did he?
November 2nd, 3 days ago.
Today's the third?
today's the
Today's
5th.
the 5th.
What?
The 5th.
November
Okay,
5th,
well,
yeah.
apparently, it's in my mail somewhere, I haven't read it, that I know of. But, my name is Jim Keller, I've been a responsible resident of this township.
Would you speak up, please? I don't think anybody can
I've
hear
been a
you.
responsible resident of this township for 25 years. I live in this mobile home park that the township doesn't say it exists. I'm glad to see that my park owner is here tonight, because I have some ordinances here that I want the township to enforce. 299.7 says, maintain in good operating order any drainage facility. And go down to D, and it says, no person shall deposit any debris or other material in any drainage ditch. And we have a drainage ditch that runs through our park. And when you get to the end of the drainage ditch, before the water goes down to the Pickering, there's a cement block there. It has holes in the bottom, so the water can go out, but the holes are clogged. And what happens, this impedes the water, and then in the summertime, it becomes a breeding ground for mosquitoes. Mr. Pfeiffer was told about this. He was also told that there was 2 sewer outlets in the park that need to be sealed. He was told this 2 months ago by the Chester County Health Department. He has done nothing to rectify the situation. 30317, there should be no accumulation of trash on any private or public property is prohibited. There's a home on Hillside Road, 56 Hillside Road, that is filled with trash. It's been that way for nearly 2 years. The owner comes and pays the rent and has the grass cut. The building is not occupied except with trash. There was a 1980 court case won by the township which said if any building was not occupied in the illegal part of the park, it was to be moved out or torn down. Township has done nothing for 34 years to do what the judge wanted to be done in that area of the park. It just shows their lack of respect for the judge who made this decision. Also, 32054 of the township's ordinance says that the park owners must construct and maintain a recreation area. They have never done that. For years, they've never done anything.
Jim,
Don't have to.
Please.
Jim, when was that, we're gonna go back to when the park, mobile
I
park
don't
was
wanna
in?
hear about that.
Jim,
Well,
it's,
don't give me that, that's nothing, has
you and
nothing to do
I
with
have
it.
had this
Has nothing to
conversation
do
multiple
with it.
times.
Yeah, it has nothing to do
Yeah,
with
yeah,
it.
it does, Jim,
No,
because that mobile park was there before the ordinance was in place.
yeah, right.
We can't go back
Yeah, right, you can't.
legally and
Any
have him
excuse you
put a
can give
record.
me.
Jim,
Okay, I'm listening to you. So you said it already, okay?
I've said it, okay?
Okay,
So you,
let us
it's
move on,
it's
okay?
repetitive that you keep bringing it up.
that's right, and I'll continue to
Every
bring it up.
month.
Yep.
And every month we listen to
Yeah.
you and we say, hey,
Yeah.
we hear you, but we're telling you now,
Yeah.
and it's coming from my voice to you.
Yeah.
There's nothing we can legally do.
It's easy to say. nothing
Okay.
to do, right? Okay, we got, two homes that are against an ordinance in the township. Two homes at Terrace Drive, number 32 and 33. 3/4 of the home is on solid ground, the other quarter is out in space, with blocks holding up the corners.
From my understanding,
Wait a minute.
were you there?
If there's ever a quake, or a tremor, or any kind of soil erosion, these homes are gonna be severely damaged. Your ordinance says there must be retaining walls, there must be a backyard. There's none of that. The backyard is, if you stepped out the door, you'd fall down to the ground.
Mr. Keller,
These are your ordinances.
and I'm gonna tell you, I'm not an expert of all ordinances, but we have
I know you're
we
not.
have our expert
That's for
here,
sure. Yeah.
who is an expert of the ordinance.
Who is? Who's the
Gentleman
expert?
from Yerkes,
Oh, yeah.
and.
He hasn't done nothing but pass the buck.
But I'm gonna ask him a question now. If it's within the legal zones of our ordinances, and I'm asking you now, do they fall within the legal ordinances?
Frank Newham, building code official, zoning officer for the township of Schuylkill, through third-party agency Yerkes Associates. Those two homes were installed and inspected under the HUD regulations that control manufactured housing.
Mm-hmm,
They have footings that go over 3 feet deep,
mm-hmm,
over 24 inches in diameter, poured concrete, and they are on concrete block stacks, which is what HUD requires. The piers are approximately every 8 feet on both sides of the house, anchored at the corners per HUD regulations. The retaining walls is the base of the hillside, Mr. Keller is alluding to, and there has been no sign of any erosion on the hillside.
great. Thank you, Frank. Yep.
If I could ask a question, Frank, Mr. Keller in his note indicates that at least one of these homes is supported on a corner by bricks.
No, two of them. Two of
All
them.
right, two of them,
They're
okay,
concrete masonry units, otherwise known as cinder blocks.
okay.
Thank
Just
you.
bricks.
Uh,
They're holding up the corners.
But are.
He just corrected you, sir.
Is that, the impression I got from his note on this is that's an exception rather than the rule in the park, whereas the others are,
Yes.
tied down.
There is an
But here
exception.
we got a couple that are just resting on some
I have
blocks.
a retaining wall on my home.
So is that, what's the situation from a code standpoint for that?
Well, I'm saying.
No, I'm asking Frank.
okay.
Every building, is this on?
Yes.
Okay, every building that we've done the inspections on is per installation, has been done in conformance with all of the HUD regulations and the requirements of the Department of Community and Economic Development in Pennsylvania, which regulates the HUD housing. And there is no fault with any of these buildings, and they're perfectly stable. I can't speak for the other buildings that were put in 30 years ago, 4 years ago, they were put in under different regulations.
Okay,
How comes
so,
the
all right.
ordinance says retaining walls and backyards? That's what it says. Read it. Go somebody through it. I'm not listening to what he says, 'cause all he does is pass the buck. I told him about propane tanks, a danger in our park. You know what he did? He knows there's something wrong, but instead of doing it, he passed the buck. He said, go to Harrisburg and get them involved. And this is what I get from Yerkes. They
Yeah,
just
no
pass
power
the
of
buck.
regulation over
They're
propane.
just a waste of your taxpayer dollars, period.
Mr. Keller, and again, this is a
Okay, let's
conversation,
move
we've
on.
had multiple conversations on the propane. It's not our call, it's the state's call on that.
Yeah, right.
I went out and
If it blows up.
I went out and I looked at all the property. Yeah, there's some that are leaning, but they're not falling over.
No.
Are they almost on a level platform? No.
No.
But it's on private property, I can't go on it,
No.
okay?
I mean,
And
there's
I'm
only
telling you
a
that,
hun-
it
there's
doesn't
only
look like
100
fault.
gallon of liquid propane in there, just like a bomb, you know?
I can tell
How
you
many,
this,
how many
if they
homes
fall
do you-
over my
how
dock.
many homes do you think would be destroyed if one of them blew up? How many?
It's,
I'll
that's
tell
an
you how
if-then,
many.
that's an
And if
if-then
there was
question, and I can't
and
answer
if
it.
there was fatalities, this township would be bankrupt. Let me tell you,
No way.
bankrupt.
No way.
Because the
Is he almost
insurance
finished?
company that has the insurance for this township knows what's going on.
Okay, your next concern?
Okay, other concern is, we don't have any regular patrols in this park, police patrols,
Oh my God.
none whatsoever.
I-
I walk this park day in and day out, and I see no police patrol. And I'll prove it to you. Back in April 14th of this year, there was a sewer leak at the far end of the park, and there's roads that go through the park. There was a sewer leak there for over nearly 2 months. The road was green. Now, if they had the patrols that the chief says they had, nobody turned it in. How could you miss a green road? Tell me. You'd have to be blind.
Mr. Keller.
There is no regular patrols in this park, and
Mr.
don't
Ke-
try to tell me there is,
How long
because
ago
I
did
walk
the one break?
walk the park every day, and I don't see anybody. We have a potential drug problem on 2 streets, because they don't care, because they know there's no police.
Excuse me, Jim. Chief Fetterman, how often do your guys patrol the neighborhood?
Whenever they can, that's right, whenever they can. They have no regular patrols, can't even find a patrol.
Would you say twice a day, maybe more?
Yeah, right.
Maybe once or twice a day.
Okay.
Thank
One
Thank you.
patrolman told me he goes out 3 o'clock in the morning from the Y and walks up into the park with a hoodie on, looking for drug dealers. He expected me to believe that story. Who the hell would be out playing with drugs at 3 o'clock in the morning?
Mr.
Come
Keller,
on,
we are
come
trying
on.
to afford you respect and patience, but it is not fair for you to avoid the facts that you are being given.
I haven't got any facts.
What's the next issue?
The next issue is, if you don't start enforcing your ordinances,
If you bring up the
you're
fire,
gonna be, no,
if you
you're
bring up
gonna
the
be,
fire,
there's gonna be a suit against you.
fine, bring it on.
Yeah, we'll bring it in. And
Bring it
you're-
on.
And the taxpayers here, you're gonna pay for the lawyers.
Bring it on.
This is your township, how they care about you. They don't care about you. We'll
Mr.
just take your
Keller.
tax dollars.
Mr. Keller, please,
I'm
we've
done.
given you
I'm done.
time,
I'm
and
done.
we've been respectful and civil. Thank you.
Read the letter from Mr. Pfeiffer.
Yes,
I'll
sir.
read it.
We'll get you a copy.
I probably got a copy at home.
All right. I can show you a copy.
No, I think he wrote it in invisible ink.
Oh, you
and
sure?
then it disappeared.
I
No,
was
he
able to read it.
actually,
Right here.
in
right
all fairness to Mr. Pfeiffer and to those who are here this evening and those who will be viewing this at home, Mr. Pfeiffer did an admirable job
Yes.
of objectively and respectfully addressing every issue that you raised in your letter. And I thank you, Mr. Pfeiffer, for taking the time and the effort to bring this to transparency. Facts are what they are.
You know, and-
Hyperbole is not appropriate.
Mr. Pfeiffer controls his township. He's controlled it for years, just like his grandfather did. Overseer, controlled the whole township. And everything that goes on.
This is Mr. Pfeiffer.
Sorry, I get nervous talking in front of people.
No, I understand.
Bear with me here. This is just outrageous. I
Yes.
mean, he's out of 56 homes that live in our community. It's not even a mobile home park anymore. And they're called communities. They're manufactured home communities. The only difference between our homes compared to the home I live in or many of the people here is that it was built in a factory, brought to the site, wheels, hitch, pulled off, and blocked up. That's the difference. There are people that go to the schools here, that play with everybody else's kids, all that. It's not a trailer park, it's not a mobile home park, it's a manufactured home community. He is our only tenant that seems to be showing up and causing any problems. I've been called on every regulatory commission that exists in the state, called discriminatory towards veterans, which is absolutely outrageous. I mean, it's just, how long am I gonna have to put up with this? He was well, all right. He was handing out papers on election day, saying that I control the township.
It's
If I
ludicrous.
controlled the township, don't you think we would have come up here first and not sat through everything, and we wouldn't even be discussing this? All we do is we own a park where people live, their community, and that's it. It's an affordable housing form.
Right, you're such a humanitarian, I know.
You're out of order.
Be quite honest with you, Mr. Kelly, you don't know anything about me, as well as I
I
don't
know
know
that
anything
you
about you.
It was 25 items.
All right,
You haven't
that's
done
enough.
hardly anything.
All right, we're done here. aren't we?
Mr. Pfeiffer, I just wanted to let you know, I have spoken to other residents in this mobile home park, and they are quite satisfied with you as a landlord. And those that have not been,
Well,
have
I work
moved
in-
out.
I work in the park day in, day out. I set the homes up. I'm a licensed installer through the state. There's nothing wrong with these homes. I mean, my letter addresses everything that.
Yes, it does,
that-
and exceedingly well.
And if we were to ever have the opportunity to build a new park in the community, then we have to follow those ordinances that the township has written.
Yeah.
You know, and as it is now, we just replace an older home with a newer home, improve the community, and bring somebody else in. So,
And you put that new.
Again,
home-
I thank you very, very much
appreciate
the
the
time
time. I mean, it's just,
and
you
the,
know.
and all of you should know the time and the objectivity that Mr. Pfeiffer addressed all of the issues that were raised.
He knows.
Your other tenants are very satisfied, and those that have not been satisfied have moved out.
Which they have the
And
right to do.
that might not
Might
be a
not-
bad idea.
For who? Now you're threatening I should move out, huh?
Let's move on, Fred.
All right, is there any more old business?
No, sir.
All right, we'll move on to new business. Anything for new business? Anything to report? All right, resolutions and ordinances, we're down to subdivision and land development. Motion, the first issue, we finally got back down to Nolan, finally.
So we're done with that one.
The first motion is to grant conditional preliminary plan approval for the Valley Forge Meadows Incorporated Nolan proposed apartment complex.
Fred, can I jump in here?
Sure.
To explain how we got to where we are?
Please.
After our last meeting, which Mr. Nolan attended, I prepared and circulated a proposed resolution which contains standard forms for the most part. However, the issues unresolved have to do with the sidewalk and the granite curbs. So I prepared 4 options, A, B, C, and D, to deal with these uncertainties. Option A, granted the 11 waivers. Option B, granted 10 of the 11 waivers, but denied the waiver concerning the sidewalk along Bowles Road, meaning that the sidewalk would have to be put in. Option C, granted all the waivers except waiver request 9 concerning the granite curbing, and put in language suggesting conformity with the planning commission's regulation or suggestion. Option D, granted all the waivers except for both the sidewalk and the granite curbing issues. However, following that, it got a little complicated because, I won't blame them, of course, but Morrison came up with
E and F.
options E1, E2, and G. So,
I don't have G, I have E and F.
and then there was another suggestion about trails. So I will leave it to Mr. Morrison to explain where we are following my suggestion.
All right, Bill just went through the options A, B, C, and D, which are various combinations of involving the granting or denial of waivers to for the sidewalk and for the granite curbing and approval of the rest of the waivers. for the most part, there's no, in fact, there is, at this point, in my mind, no issue with 9 of the 11 waivers. Okay, the issues really center on waiver number 4, which is the sidewalk, and the waiver number 9, which involves the straight, involves the granite curbing. All right. So with that introduction, I looked at what Bill had done. I thought that maybe a couple of 3 more options are probably called for. Option E is basically to deny the waiver for the sidewalk, but require a paved path in lieu of the sidewalk. All right, so it's a partial denial, if you will. And that's coupled with a requirement for, and this is a rewording of essentially what the Planning Commission did, which I've explained to Jim. Requiring not full granite curbing through the whole complex, but just the straightaway of the driveway going in from Paulings, where the one end on Paulings would flare to concrete curbing as he has done in the Meadows, and at the other end he's free to do whatever curbing is needed for the parking and so forth in concrete. So that's option E. Option F is requiring the sidewalk by denying waiver 4, and the same provision for the straight section of granite curbing. Option G would basically permit the waivers or approve the waivers except for number 9 involving the granite curbing, again specifying that be a straight section. So those are the.
What was G again?
G is.
Because I don't have that one.
Yeah, well, I sent that out a little bit late today.
Neither do I don't have it.
I wasn't home all afternoon,
Yeah,
so I never got
okay,
that.
all right, well, it should be in your packet. Mary put it together, and it's the last
I didn't get a
last one.
packet.
It's pretty straightforward. It gives waivers for everything except the granite curbing, and that's a partial waiver only to provide for straight sections along the driveway, and that's it.
That's the, which one?
That's G. That's
G,
G.
just for the granite.
It gives, option G gives him.
Waiver for the trail.
It gives him
and sidewalk.
gives him 10 waivers, okay, except for the number 9 waiver, which is partially granted by requiring him to put granite curbing in on the straightaway of the driveway.
And then not in the complex itself.
Correct.
Okay.
And not at Paulings Road, because there the issue is, and I hope John can confirm this, I think he has before, PennDOT doesn't like granite curbing in their right of way.
That's correct.
Okay, well, what about the paved trail part? Is that in G?
All right, yeah, so back to that, the option E involves the paved path, okay, and the straight granite curbing. Option F requires the sidewalk in straight granite curbing, and I just explained option G, which is just the straight granite curbing.
But that has nothing to do with either the trail or the sidewalk.
No,
That was another suggestion.
Yeah, let me pick up on that. We've had some negative comments from residents at the Meadows. In fact, there's actually been a survey done by the president of the Homeowners Association relative to the possibility of or the configuration of a trail network in his proposed new development.
Can I make a clarification to your comment? That survey was recommended and requested by the chairman.
Okay,
Right.
yeah,
Let's-
that's fine, yeah.
It was, as
and
our
we-
I want to make sure that we got it on record.
Sure,
The discussion we had last month, quite an elaborate discussion around the trail and the requirement of the board
right.
to the planning commission to override the recommendation of the open space commission, to override the recommendation of having a trail made, a walking trail, where it wasn't defined, but a walking trail of a natural walking trail, which.
Not paved.
Not paved, but with, really, it's not even defined in the code or any requirements in the township of what a walking trail is. So it was just arbitrarily agreed upon that there would be a walking trail through the space that was gonna be given, or the space that was gonna be left open, right, the conserved space. So they were gonna put a walking trail. And then the request by going through my minutes of the board going to an open space meeting and a planning, that you were not happy with the plan of the walking trail just within the property, not connected to anything. And then from the minutes, it was your request to connect the meadows. By the minutes of this.
Yeah.
It was your request and your direction to Nolan and the planning commission that the meadows should be connected,
Right,
right?
right.
Okay, so then we came, everybody here came last month, under the guidance, or not the interpretation that it was the board's decision that it would be in the interest of the meadows to have the trail connected to the development, right? That was what was stated, that, so
Okay.
Mr. Perry requested that I go back and take a survey of our neighborhood, because you basically said I had no right to speak for our development as an elected officer of our homeowners association.
Right.
So I told you I would go back, and I conducted a formal survey of 265 residents, which was delivered, correct? Because I hadn't received any response, and it was
Which
received
we
and distributed.
received, yes.
Okay, and it was what, almost 199
Yeah.
respondents
Yep.
out of 265 homes, but 199, 85 to 89% was against the walking trail.
Right.
But it was also the option of leaving out that maybe they can have it within the development of the open space area.
Right.
Doesn't have to be connected to the neighborhood.
Right, okay.
That was maybe 10%, and there was a fraction, a fraction that said, leave it as is, they wanted it. I think it was 2 people, or maybe 7 people total,
Yeah.
out of 199 votes.
Yeah.
Okay, but this was a request of the board, because you were going under the question that we wanted it.
That's right.
So I said, I'll go back, if it was, so.
Yes, and thank you.
Okay, all right, we thank you
So
for doing
now-
that.
But it sounds like that wasn't even factored into any of the options that
Well,
you just presented,
I-
but now you've got a paved trail.
Well,
What do you mean, well, where is the paved trail come from?
well,
Where'd that
just
come from?
hold on a second.
Where did that come from? There was never a discussion, we were here for an hour and a half last month.
What,
There was no paved trail.
We never said
if
anything
you
about
could,
it.
if you could just,
Well,
pause a second here, let me answer you. What was always, what was pretty much always under discussion was requiring a sidewalk.
We
And
never-
because that was a requested waiver from Mr. Nolan's engineer, to not requiring to have a sidewalk, okay? So, then we got into some discussions about, gee, what's the,
What meeting are we referring to? What meeting are you referring to?
The open space?
It had to do, it was in the planning commission, we discussed this. I think it was in the open space commission that,
Planning Commission's recommendation was to give waiver for not only for the sidewalk.
correct.
Okay.
A waiver for the
So
sidewalk.
why didn't we not listen to our planning commission board, who is a vital part of our commission? And we rely on their expertise to give them the waiver for the sidewalk.
Look, can I just finish my point?
Sure, go ahead.
I'm just
Okay,
trying to clarify.
all right. What I'm driving at here is, in my mind, there's 2 separate things going on. One is providing a connection, a walking connection from the entrance to the proposed new development, okay, to Revolutionary Boulevard, okay? And that could be either a sidewalk or a parallel, roughly parallel paved pathway, all right? So that's one issue relative to the sidewalk. The other issue has to do with your concerns about trail connections that are not paved, that were drawn up in a configuration by Mr. Nolan.
Plan that was going up for approval.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Which is on that plan.
what I'm proposing at this point is that we defer any consideration of such a walking trail, okay, and its arms and connections, until we get to a point where we're discussing the conservation easement, which is another public hearing, okay?
had that here, because that's the next.
No,
No, we have to get a new
No, we have not.
appraisal.
No, we
Jump
haven't.
in for 1 second.
Not even worried about the appraisal right now.
Yeah, I raised at the last meeting the concern I have about proposing trails at this point in the proposed conservation easement, because there's nothing, there's gonna be supposedly a new appraisal to see where we are with that, so that's not done yet. Mr. Nolan wants his approval tonight, so I don't know how we deal with that. My suggestion is paragraph 17, which if you don't mind, I'd like to read. Says that applicant has proposed that 19.02 acres of the property be deed restricted by virtue of an open space conservation easement proposed to be in accordance with the Pennsylvania open space law. At this time, no contract for acquisition of open space by conservation easement has been entered into by the parties. Passage of this resolution does not constitute a contract or any legal obligation of Schuylkill Township to purchase a conservation easement. In the event a conservation easement is purchased by Schuylkill Township before the filing of the final plan, then the details of the acquisition shall be noted on the final plan. In the event the parties are unable to reach an agreement for acquisition of an open space conservation easement before execution of the final plan, then the final plan shall not show the conservation easement, and the parties shall have no obligation to each other with respect thereto. In any event, the parties may continue negotiations toward acquisition of an open space conservation easement regardless of when the final
Sidewalks,
plan is
okay.
executed and recorded.
You just said that.
What that means in essence is that
You want a sidewalk?
it's hard, Jim, I think, to specify trails in the open space now when we're uncertain as to where that's gonna end up.
That's my point.
All right, and then the next question is, who's paying for these trails?
Well, let's drop that one for the moment. The question is, should they, at what point should they be considered? And all I'm saying is, it complicates matters, I think, significantly right now, to talk about some kind of layout of the trail system.
Then you're gonna have to make a new motion.
When we haven't really, we really haven't discussed
Okay, all right.
your colored version that few people have seen, as I recall at this point.
You were asking to approve this plan with trails in the plan.
Yeah, but there were some trails, well, I'm not 100% convinced that plan reflects what's here. Now, if it does, then that's one thing, but again, my point is these walking trails have become controversial with the residents, okay? Let's just, table this for the moment, revisit this during a conservation easement, okay?
We've been here 3 hours.
I'm concerned about tabling because one is you're asking for a preliminary approval on a building plan.
Right.
We're not
Okay.
asking for it, he's asking for it.
He is asking.
Right.
Sorry. And part of that plan that was originally approved or being presented here, right, which becomes the approved plan that you mentioned last meeting, that if you give basically a preliminary approval, you have approved it.
Yeah,
That
but-
was your,
Well, yes, but the truth is, as I mentioned last time, there are 2 things going on here, the plan approval and the issue of the acquisition of this conservation easement. And we talked about whether they could be synchronized. I don't know if they can, because, the township has to get another appraisal. Now, Mr. Nolan wants to talk about
appraisal last time.
You know what? That's in the works.
Right.
And the question is, how do we deal with this portion of the property? It's not subdivided, it's one property. So if there's a plan approved with trails on it, I don't know where that leaves us in the event that, well, I don't know the answer to that. So it's complicated and,
I'm looking for you as the
So there
legal.
should be taken-
So that's my concern, so here's the other thing. If you got the open space the easement, or if you, whatever you call it, the conservatory, right?
Conservation.
Conservation easement, does that wipe out anything that was built on the original plan?
Table that?
No, the conservation easement,
Right, now, does that overrule what's on a plan?
no.
Because what if the open space conservation easement doesn't go through and he doesn't accept it, and he's got a plan with the trail through and everything else, now, where?
But that's the precise reason I say don't put it on there now, okay? Because he might decide, I'm gonna build on that land after all.
All right, hold on,
Then
hold
there
on.
has to be another
All right,
plan.
but
There
hold
has to be
on.
a whole other plan without the trails. You can't-
Exactly.
You can't say it's gonna go away.
That's precisely right. So what
So he has to have another plan.
No, it's not that difficult, okay?
It
No, it's not. All this would be is a condition currently on the current plan to basically remove the trails for the moment until we can address the conservation easement and the trail network.
Respectfully, if he is approved, if that plan is being approved,
Right.
then that plan is approved. He has to have another plan to show it's either A or B. But he doesn't have point B that doesn't have the trails not on it. So if this gets in.
We have a legal issue here, okay? We really do.
So then should we
It's an
Hang on.
interpretation, it's an interpretation question between the authority of the conservation easement and the authority of the preliminary plan. And I don't think we got it resolved.
Can I make one
Okay.
point, which is that, I think what Jim is suggesting is that the question of the easement be taken off now and postponed, but the problem is, and in fairness, if an easement is acquired later on, then it's likely that the township would have the right in its easement to designate walking trails. So the issue isn't dead, it would just be postponed, in connection with, the possibility of purchase of an easement, which is in negotiations, but not yet resolved.
I don't think so.
Because very frankly, the other issue here is, and I've had discussions with Mr. Nolan on this, is ultimately, he's in business, and he's in business to make some money. And we are entertaining the idea of following an appraised amount to pay for a conservation easement, so there will be no further development on the majority of this land, about 20 acres out of the 30. The problem with that one is that we have an appraisal, but it's 6 years old, okay? And we've come to the conclusion in the Open Space Commission, and I think we're approaching that same conclusion with the board, and that's going to be addressed here shortly, I believe, that we're really in need of a second opinion and a more current appraisal, okay? So, if that amount is not equal to, it's less than, as I say, for sake of argument, than the previous amount, Mr. Nolan has some concerns about that. Initially, his initial plan, that's not the one you're looking at right now, this goes back 6 years, showed an additional 4 buildings, an additional 32 units on the northern part of the development. And he certainly has that option because those were engineered at the time with landscape architects and engineers and so forth. So that's still hanging out there. And so if those went in, that would overlay any trail system that might be considered at this point.
I understand, but we're not even there, so that's hypothetical of the future, or hypothetical of what potentially could happen. My point is, if you're approving a plan, and the preliminary plan he's asking for was a variance from the curbing, the sidewalk, and whatever, we're saying the trails should, you wanted him to put the trails in, the trails were not in the plan, you were telling him to put the trails in, we're saying we didn't want them. So the point was.
It's a question of where you don't want it.
Yeah,
You didn't want it
Connected.
an enclosed loop trail within the apartment complex. And wait, let me finish, please. Okay, and a trail, a multi-use trail is a different definition than a walking path, okay? A multi-use trail, as required by federal law, don't fall over, is required to be 10 feet wide and paved to provide handicapped accessibility for 2 wheelchairs to pass each other.
But I have to jump right in
Let
here.
me-
Wait a minute, no, I have to jump right in here.
Let me just.
Let her
Wait a minute,
finish,
wait a minute. This is
please.
very important, very important.
Let her finish.
No, it's very important that she be corrected here. Yes, the federal government requires for a multi-use trail, which can involve bicycles, a 10-foot wide paved pathway. ADA compatible pathways don't have to be 10 feet wide, okay? They can be.
Jim, you and I have had this disagreement before.
No, I've researched this. They can be down to 5 feet wide to accommodate wheelchair, basically.
Okay.
Okay,
So-
You and
all
I
right.
have to respectfully.
Fred.
How did we get to
Let me-
paved
Leave me
pathways?
alone.
The point that I am trying to make is this. Respecting your privacy is something, I can't speak for my colleagues. I have listened to and respected. What I would like to see with regard to Mr. Nolan's development is an internal loop walking path
From where?
within his development.
But he doesn't want it attached to his apartment
It's
complex.
his decision.
Yeah.
That's his decision.
That's
But-
his
right.
decision.
So the
I
que-
am willing to compromise and not have the walking path connect to the meadows,
Well, thank
given the
you.
degree of disagreement.
It's your
We're
decision.
still forcing a path down our throats.
That's
No,
right.
you're-
It is nothing,
One second, it's, well, one second.
sorry.
First,
You know-
clearly define.
Hang on,
okay,
please.
Clearly define what you would require as a walking path. Because there's still open debate, because there's nothing in the township code of what a walking path is. You know, what would be potentially Mr. Nolan or the homeowners association, because as a homeowners association, I would have concern
Okay.
future, saying what that path can be constructed of, what are the liabilities,
See,
requirements.
I will answer your question. Since 1930, we have lived adjacent to the Horseshoe Trail, or the Horseshoe, we haven't lived there since 1930. The Horseshoe Trail has been part of Valley Forge Mountain since 1930, okay? It is a walking path. Some of it is wood chips, some of it is, actually, there's a stretch where the guy wanted to put up that 190-foot tower. It's actually a paved private road where residents strongly oppose that supposedly ham radio operator tower, okay? So what I'm saying is a walking path would be natural materials, if you will, as opposed to a paved trail, okay? I'm defining a walking path, and there are a lot of new materials out there that could be used as opposed to a multi-use walking trail that has certain requirements and standards attached to
Okay,
it.
that's wonderful. I mean, I agree. Now, the question I had to follow up is how is that understood 5 years, 10 years from now? Is there anything in the plans or the codes or the township that says what this walking trail is to be maintained?
No, not that I know of.
No.
So does it need to be on his plan? If there's no definition, how would you define anything on, I mean, you've got the codes on here for curbing, curb height, dimensions about everything, but then you throw in the trail, but there's no clarification of how something must be
Well, you
maintained or
said the
built.
right word, clarification. You know, I don't get involved in voting. My job is to make sure that what happens is what they intend. And so there needs to be clarity about whether there's gonna be a trail, yes or no, who's gonna pay for it, yes or no, what's it gonna be, built, and who's gonna maintain it. And then this is complicated by the uncertainty about the, you know, the easement and, Mr. Nolan's desire to have a decision tonight.
Okay, so
Okay,
originally,
Hang on.
Jim's got a question. Mr. Nolan's got a question.
Just a minute, please.
Okay. I have a question for Bill. So basically, Bill, what you're saying is, since we don't have clarification about what this is really going to look like, we need to table this?
I don't wanna say that, I mean, you could vote on it, but, you know, there could be provisions in the resolution that say, in text, that, you know, the plan that's approved, the final plan shall not show any trail. In other words, he's allowed to make corrections from preliminary to final, and, we could put a paragraph in the resolution that says that, the final plan shall not show any trails, if that's what you want. Or, the final plan shall show trails consistent with the attached plan, and you draw the, you know, somebody knows what they're doing, draws where the plans are, and
But
that's attached
since
to the
we
resolution.
don't even know if there's going to be a conservation easement, isn't this dangerous to approve a plan that includes one, that we're not
Well,
even sure that it's going to include one?
That's the concern about running on two tracks at the same time.
Right, right.
I
So
don't-
should we table this based on that until we actually know whether we're going to have a conservation easement or
Let's
not?
see what Mr. Nolan has to say
yeah,
about it.
Mr. Nolan.
Well, let's just start,
Thank you for,
let's just start
Thanks,
with the trail. I never envisioned a trail there. I was asked to put a trail there. And like any good deed that goes unpunished, I said, okay, I'll put a trail there, but it's gonna be a nature trail, it's gonna be a dirt trail, walking, bird watching, that's it. No bikes, none of that nonsense. And it was my understanding, up till now, and it's been, I guess, 6 years, that that's what everybody was agreed to. Then all of a sudden, and then I was told where to put the trail. I had to
By
follow the
whom?
people through the woods, they had the GPS, from the Natural Lands Trust, and they told me where I was to put the trail.
You guys said you walked there.
And then, I'm sorry, and then I was asked, after that was mapped out, I was asked by somebody who has the authority to take the trail from in the woods up to Ballings Road and down to my main entrance. And I agreed to that too. And then all of a sudden, now we're talking about paved trails. And that's taking it way out of my ballpark.
Right. Let me
I'm
ask,
not gonna do any paved trails.
may I ask you a question? And Bill, this pertains to you as well. Given the fact that the Meadows residents want to maintain their privacy, I have not walked this, having had hip surgery and stuff to deal with, okay? Would nature paths within your property, as you just defined them, and being a gentleman approved, could we approve the trails within his property?
Yes.
Yeah, but Barbara, my whole point is, we don't even have the easement agreement yet. So
Well,
why
let me-
would we
let me-
approve something?
Well, could
Let me
we,
address
all
that
right,
as well.
can I answer
Please.
this? And could we
The easement
approve?
agreement was not my idea. Once again, I was approached by the township.
Right,
And the township said, would you consider an easement agreement on this property in the back?
Just a minute.
And I said I would.
and we did that for the benefit of the folks living in the meadows to preserve their privacy and provide a buffer zone for them.
And I thought that was a great idea, and I went right along with it. And you guys went out and got an appraisal, and came to me and said, would you do this? And I said, yes, I would.
So my question.
That was 6 years ago,
I know,
okay, 6 years ago. I've been wanting an approval for 6 years.
Hold on a second.
but
So
you
to be
haven't
fair,
been
just a
to
minute.
us for a
I haven't held this
Hold on.
thing up.
Well, yeah, let's be clear about that. I can't let that statement go. The 6 years has passed, but you've had a right at any time to move this thing along quickly. It sat for months and years with no action on your end. And there was a problem with the zoning hearing board that came up, hear me out, and you went to the zoning hearing board and lost. And then there had to be an appeal taken where we cooperated with your lawyer, Carl Wiener, to get that situation fixed up. So, you know.
All right, just so we understand, and everybody else understands what that zoning hearing board was, we were asking to put our sewer line from our development to the manhole behind the development.
We didn't oppose it.
Which, yeah, well, you did, you just turned
No,
it
we didn't.
down.
No, we didn't.
The zoning hearing board turned down, they
Right.
said I could go through the wetlands, but I
The
couldn't go through
township
the
did
buffer.
not oppose that application. We didn't appear at it. For whatever reasons, we were not involved in it, and you lost the case. You didn't, your lawyer did, blame your lawyer. But the truth is, an appeal was taken, and we came to a stipulation to give you the relief you wanted. My only point in raising all of this is that we were not involved in any delays, and I've seen this thing about the township delay for 6.5 years, not true. At any time, you could have sent a letter and said the postponement that you granted at the time of filing is out, make a decision in 45 days, and you would have gotten a decision. So I just think it's incorrect to blame the township for a 6.5-year delay when there was no motion on your part. So I see it.
Thank you, Bill. That was very well done. You know, I try and work with the township. I don't make waves.
I didn't say that. I said
Well,
that when you say that.
that's why it's taken so long, because I don't make waves.
Well-
And you see me here with a lawyer tonight? No. If I had started with a lawyer a long time ago, I'd probably be a lot further along.
Well, it's up to you, Jim. All I'm saying is when you blame us for the 6 years, in my opinion, that's incorrect.
Well, that's your opinion.
All right?
We'd like to,
Hang on a minute.
okay.
Got a person. Yes, sir.
So I don't know why we're putting a trail on this thing anyhow. You picked the worst piece of ground. The worst piece of ground in the entire township. It's got steep slopes, wetlands, floodplain buffers and all this stuff. Why would you put it there? I don't even know why you would.
Well,
All right, just let me get
Hang
back-
on.
Wait a minute. Let me
Please,
get-
Please let the person speak here. He's next.
I'm just a new resident to the Meadows, and so I may be a little, and I don't know all the details, but if he doesn't wanna build it, and we don't want it, why is it being built? Why
Okay,
is it still in plan?
enough's enough, fine.
Yes. No one wants it except for one or two people, and they don't live
Barbara
in the
Cohen
neighborhood.
wants it, and nobody else.
excuse,
Hang on.
please don't speak for me.
Secondly, to add on to that, this walking trail that is only gonna be a part of this complex, are people gonna come drive to this complex just to walk this trail? Most likely not.
No.
So then why put it in?
Okay, enough's enough. Jim?
Yeah, once
You're
again,
next.
the sentiment is clear at the moment that you all don't want a trail in there, okay? I hear that, all right? All I'm doing here with this condition 19, and I'll read it to you, all right? Walking trails may be specified and approved by the Board of Supervisors of Schuylkill Township as part of a conservation easement placed on all or part of the 30-acre property. It doesn't say shall, it says may. Okay, that's a big difference.
Who's gonna
And-
pay for them? Who's gonna
Well,
maintain?
that's a separate question, Bill.
No, it's not.
It's a separate question. It's a separate question. The point is that in the past, when we've done conservation easements, we have done a bit of a negotiation with the landowners to say, hey, yeah, we like the idea of the conservation easement, protecting open space, but we also like to see some kind of a trail through there. Now, whether that's only used by the residents of that particular piece of property or not, that's another question. But you know, if we were to revisit this and do as Barbara suggested with a small loop trail totally within the woods, not connected to anything except maybe a short stub to the parking area in front of the apartment buildings, then the dwellers, or the renters, okay, in this instance, could make use of it, and they'd probably enjoy it. That was, you know, that was the thought, right?
How can you say that? You don't even know.
Excuse me,
Hang on.
There are people that like to
I'd
walk in
like
the
to
woods.
address something.
Go ahead.
Thank you. With all due respect to you, sir, I have to take issue with your throwing out a disparaging remark about my wanting a trail. Because I have a lot of experience working with, please let me finish my sentence if you don't mind. Thank you. I have a lot of experience in understanding how a trail gets developed. As a matter of fact, my son in 1984 got his Eagle Scout by marking the trail in Valley Forge Park. I don't think it's appropriate to put a trail where it can't be placed, okay? I respect your privacy. And I am happy to not have a trail if it is, as Mr. Nolan suggests, totally inappropriate to do so. I could never walk that, given the description that you've given. The only thing that I was trying to do was to create a way, an amenity for all of you with a sidewalk. In putting in a sidewalk and not the trail, then you can walk to the Schuylkill River Trail. That's all.
Come forward. Hang on a
I
minute,
have an
please.
idea for how that can be accomplished.
Nobody here really knows me because I don't live in your development, but I live across the street from it. And most of the water that drips, runs into where you'd like to build, comes across my yard. It's crazy. It's a lot of water. And it all comes from a development that's above my house that doesn't have any storm drains. So, you know, grew up on a pig farm, you know, I know what it's like to walk through muck. Been through your property a million times. There's no place to put a trail. I've watched tons of people come in and out of there sticking little yellow, red tags all throughout the area. I've drug, I don't know,
Okay,
20, 30 deer through there. It's wet all the time. Sometimes it's flooded, sometimes it's hard, dry. It's a mess. There's really, doesn't,
Do you wanna say
there's no
something?
trail that really
Just a-
belongs there.
Okay,
hang on.
thank you. I'd like my question to be answered. Can we approve a plan when we really don't know what it's gonna look like in the end because we don't have a conservation
Will you hold
easement?
up, please? No, you can't. I
Then
can
think
answer
then
that right now.
I think this needs to
You
be
cannot do
tabled.
that, but we haven't come to that.
But I think this needs to
Solution
be
yet.
tabled until we know exactly what this whole thing is going to look like.
I don't question
We
that.
can't approve the plan without the conservation easement.
Can we approve a plan
One second.
without a trail written on it? Just
One
No,
second.
because we don't have a conservation easement, period.
No, but you could,
It's two different,
you can
It's
approve.
two separate
One second.
things.
You can approve this plan if he decides to build on the conservative easement. Right now, he's asking for a plan without anything built on that.
But
If-
what I'm
But if he
saying is
doesn't-
we don't even have a conservation easement. If we don't come up with an agreement, the plan's not going to look like that.
It'll look just like that.
No, it won't look
Why?
like
Because
that.
he can't build on that conservative easement, right?
Well, but if there's,
But we don't
If-
have
but
the
if there's no
easement.
easement, he will
That's what
be.
I just said. If we don't have a conservation easement.
That's a possibility. No easement is a possibility.
I understand that, but that's the plan he's asking to approve.
Correct.
So he would have to come back for another
Yes.
completely new plan.
Yep.
If you did not give him money for the conservation easement, this is what he's planning on building right now. And you were asking to approve this with exceptions, the variance of a sidewalk and a curb cutting. And there is no, now the trail, but we'll say the trail doesn't have to be in there, right?
That's right.
So Bill, is
Because
this,
No
there's
trail.
There's no definition of a trail in this township to begin with that you can enforce a code on. It's a walking trail, so he's.
so
Just a
Bill,
minute.
is
What?
there a gamble in approving a plan without the conservation easement? Is there, is there
Well, let
something
me-
that could hurt the township if we approve this plan?
If you wish to approve the plan, you may do so, but there should be a provision in the resolution that says, in words or in substance, that the trails that are shown on the plan shall be removed.
That's correct.
Time of filing. So therefore, you would be approving this plan, and we're still stuck on the other two issues, but, you know, the sidewalk and the granite stuff, we'll put that aside for a minute. If you want to vote on this tonight, you can vote on the resolution with the 18 standard paragraphs and put another 19 in saying that the walking trails currently shown on the plan you're voting on shall be removed from the time of final. Now, where that leaves you is that there'll be nothing shown on the plan. The uncertainty for the residents is that if there ultimately is a conservation easement, the township would have the right to put trails in that conservation easement, which they don't want. So in order to lock this down,
Well.
No, but my whole point is, my whole question is, a conservation easement or no conservation easement? I don't even, the trails are irrelevant at this point.
well, it's.
If we approve this plan with a conservation easement, and all of a sudden we don't come up with a conservation easement agreement,
Oh, no, we're not approving with a conservation.
That's right.
That's gotta come off, and that's what paragraph 17 says, that, you know, there is no conservation easement, it can't be on the plan.
right?
we're just
And- but-
approving
But
the.
if the easement is purchased by the time of final plan, which might not be for 6 months or a year, then it'll go on the plan. But the uncertainty is, you know, when we design and plan these conservation easements, often there are trail components to them, such as there were in that Thompson property. There were trails running through it. So the trails are something that is part of the discussion with the National Lands Trust. And, you know, the residents don't want that. They don't want to have trails ever. And,
So basically, you're saying we can approve this plan with no conservation easement?
yes.
Yes.
You can,
Okay.
Yeah.
but it doesn't solve their problem, which is in the future, another
And without a
board or
trail.
somebody else could put trails in as part of the acquisition of the conservation easement.
But once the conservation easement is consummated, and it doesn't specify trails, that's it, folks.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but that's not here, we're not there yet.
Well, no, but I want to point out to the audience that that's the power of the conservation easement. It's very, very difficult to amend once it's enacted.
But it could
It
have
doesn't
trails.
stop, it doesn't stop people from walking on the easement and building their own trail, the neighbors, the residents wanted to walk.
Go ahead, Mr.
That's a
Nolan.
whole other thing.
Please,
That's a whole-
please, Mr. Nolan.
Could I get an approval, a preliminary approval, with the conservation, subject to the conservation easement on the property, but no trail?
Sure.
Yeah.
So-
When you mean subject to, what does that mean?
It means that if there's no, if a conservation easement isn't signed, then I don't have a preliminary approval. It's a preliminary approval, subject to, I mean, you guys put conditions on these things all the time. So this is not new. Subject to the conservation easement being satisfied,
So that.
but no trail.
So that if there's no conservation easement ever, then you have no approval. So that all your
Right.
engineering fees are wasted, aren't you taking a gamble?
No, because I'll come back, if I don't get a conservation easement on the property, then I come back in with the other 4 buildings. So I'm starting over again anyhow.
Have to think about that.
Take your time.
So should we table this then?
No,
Hold on.
we're going to have to discuss it again at another time.
Hold on.
I just wanted to be noted that as the trail sits on the plan right now, the trail on the plan now is indicated by others. So technically, although depicted for location, the trail technically is not part of the application. The plan does label the trail as by others.
That's correct.
Because it was an intent to
Without the
separate
trail.
the permitting of the trail from this application. So as the plans sit on file now, the plan is noted as by others, not
That's what-
as part of this development.
That's
So
correct.
that, Mr. Nolan was not gonna build it. Right?
Until location and everything was determined, then whether he was to build it and who was to permit it.
Hang on.
I don't like this lack of clarity. Can you wait another month?
Hey, Bob, what's?
Can he wait another month? He waited 6 years.
My question is to Bob. Bob, what's your thoughts on open spaces thoughts on the trail?
Well, before I address that, I mean, I think the simplest way to do this is approve the plan as presented with the exception that there be no trails at this time, okay? I mean, you have two separate issues here. One is you want preliminary plan approval of the area that's being developed. Correct. That's what you want, okay. So they should vote on that now. And then there's a separate issue, and that is the negotiation of a conservation easement. And the negotiation of a conservation easement takes, like 6 months. And through that period, there's, negotiation, and you have all kinds of things that you agree on, and there's due diligence and hazardous, environmental hazard studies and this, that, and the other thing. And during that process, we would, from time to time, have a public hearing on any proposed trail. Okay? We could do that, if in fact there is a trail.
But Bob, that would mean that there could never be trails on the area being developed, which is something that somebody suggested. In other words,
There are no
every
trails
move you make
on
here,
There are no trails on the area being developed.
Yeah.
right, but somebody suggested tonight there should be trails there and not elsewhere.
I don't know where that came from.
There's no room on that area.
No,
No, there's no trail.
no. So you have two separate
Issues.
activities here. One is approving the Jim's plan, Mr. Nolan's plan for the developable area right now. And the other is a conservation easement that, we'll go through our usual process. It'll take 6 months. And there will be public input on, again, to the extent there is a trail, on the trail. And, we'll work that through, and everyone will have an opportunity to weigh in. And Jim's not prevented from going from the preliminary plan to a final plan on the area that's being developed. And, you know, if there is no conservation easement, you can always come forward and, you know, put forth a plan for the 4 buildings.
Okay, thank you, Bob.
So basically, he'll still, he will still not be able to do anything for another 6 months. Because what he's saying, because if you don't come up with a conservation easement,
He can still develop the property.
he could develop the property based on the original plan, which was 6 years ago, or whatever.
No, no.
That one right there.
If the conservation easement doesn't go through, he can still build the 9 apartment buildings that are shown on that 10.86 acres.
Yes, but I thought he said he wanted to build an additional 4 if we don't
He
go with the
would,
conservation
he would.
easement.
He would do that.
But I'd have to come in for approval again.
Yep.
I can't just go.
Oh, so that wasn't approved?
No.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I wasn't here 6 years ago. I apologize.
No, that was a good question, but yeah, he would have to
Yep.
just start.
Okay,
From scratch.
okay.
Okay. All right, Mr. Nolan,
Yes, sir.
you have anything else to say?
No, I just have one quick, if there is a motion to approve the plan tonight, whether it be a conservation easement and financial terms worked out between the required parties, the current plan still shows that area in an easement, whether you call it a conservation easement or not. The development is still this, in the 10 acres of development, so the plan
Development's
still,
already done.
still has an easement, you're still just approving this density, whether it be an official conservation easement or just an easement in
I don't
general.
want any ambiguity about whether we have a deal or don't have a deal about the conservation easement.
But this plan is putting that land into a restricted easement anyway.
Mr. Nolan, I would suggest, would not want to put it into a restricted easement right now without some kind of a deal, because somebody might say, well, you put it in an easement, you can't do anything with it, and you don't get any money.
That's why I'm saying do it as a condition.
That's a rough condition, you know, the conditions are, you know, that's really out there, because I don't know where that's going, and, the conditions that I normally approve are minor matters. This thing about getting an easement and conditioning the whole thing on it, it's too much. Too many things can go wrong there.
Why are we getting another appraisal? We all had it.
We haven't even got to that yet. That's not this motion. That's the next motion, the appraisal.
I thought that was already approved, by the way, but,
No.
Could they legally approve this thing with the appraisal the way it is right now?
in my opinion, no.
Why?
Because it's 6.5 years old, the world has changed. We've talked to a number of experts in the field who said that it would be insane to rely on a 6.5-year-old appraisal. This board could be surcharged if the value's off.
Just for due diligence, we have to do the appraisal.
All right, I'm gonna ask my
We're
co-
constrained by the law.
And that's supposed to be done,
Once we approve the appraisal to get done tonight, they'll
no,
work
the
on it.
appraisal would take, what, 2 months?
I don't know.
Approximately.
It's gonna be, I spoke with 2 appraisers, and they both said, early January to mid-January.
2 months,
2 months.
3 the most.
So should we table this until we get
I would
that?
That,
Sure.
just wait a
Okay.
minute.
All right, I'd like to make a motion to table this.
I'll second.
Go with the flow.
All right, I've heard the motion, here a second. Is there any discussion? I don't agree with that, but I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. It's passed.
So we're table to next month.
I would rather have the plan without the
Yeah.
trails.
Hey, Jim,
I don't want the trails.
Mr. Nolan,
I don't either.
Mr. Nolan, can we get a plan without the trail on it?
We still have,
I know. I know. So
We
pop one out and drop it off. Yeah, to the township.
we still have another motion for your property, for the appraisal.
Barbara, we're not done.
I will report you. I think I know where you're getting at. We're gonna,
Hey, Your cards and the firearms. Appraisal for the cards and the firearms. And appraisal for the whole property was $11.
Who the hell are you? All right, let's go continue the meeting, please.
You want one? Pete, you want one? Pete, you want one? You want one? You said you want one? Did you say you just want one?
Next item is a motion to obtain an updated appraisal for the 19.02 acres from Valley Forge Meadows, Nolan, at not to exceed $10,000 for a possible purchase of the conservation easement.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
I think this is a wise decision on the part of the board.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the Masters, next item is the Masters subdivision, 100 Ferry Lane, discussion whether escrow agreement should be submitted.
Hi, my name is John Deemer. This job, I believe, goes back to when Mr. Brennan was planning commission member. But this project received preliminary final plan approval back in '06. Sorry for anybody that can't see this.
Otherwise known as the master.
The master subdivision, 103 Ferry Lane, was for the subdivision of 4 properties, leaving the existing property. 2 flag lots come off a common driveway in the back, and then 2 more lots off of Falling Road. This plan has final plan approval. We're in the process of dotting all the i's and crossing all the t's with Gilmore. And one of the questions that's brought up is the requirement of escrow. When you post escrow, the original estimate was done. As you can see, stormwater management for this site was handled with individual infiltration beds on each lot. So when you do the total improvements for the entire project, I forget what the number was, but it was in the hundreds of thousands of dollars for escrow, with not knowing which of these lots are going to be built, if all these lots are going to be built. So what we're asking the board to do is, with notations on the record plan, that when each individual lot comes in for building permit, we escrow the improvements for that lot at that time. That way, you're not tying up money that may never get built. So we're not looking to not escrow. We're looking to escrow it at this time, the pins and monuments that establish the 5 lots. And then notations on the plan, because all the public improvements are contained within the lot. They don't overlap lots.
John, what do you think of that?
In principle, I don't have a concern with it. I think it makes sense because, as Mr. Deemer said, you don't know how long it's going to be when each of these building permit applications comes in. I think you can get your escrow, which would really cover just the stormwater management system. There are no public improvements per se, except the stormwater management system is probably the most critical element of each of these lots when they go to development, and you want to make sure you have money in escrow to cover their proper installation and inspection.
Well, the hook in this situation is there's no building permit, I guess, if we have to look at the money. Like right now, we would not grant approval for the, you have final?
We have final plan approval.
So where we are now is in the agreement process, is that right? And she doesn't want to put the money up now because for whatever reason, is that right?
Correct.
You did say you were going to install the pins and monuments now?
Now, just
Okay. And these are all individual driveway cuts on Ferry Lane?
Well, that's the one thing we would have to notify is lots 1 and 2 back here.
They have a shared.
It's a separate driveways till you get to the right of way. There's a shared portion here. So the first person to come in with a building permit, we would note that they have to pave the full width of the driveway.
Excuse me, where, because I was not on the board when this was first presented, you said '06?
'06, I believe you got final plan.
Okay, well, I didn't come on till late in '07. So my question to you is, where is this geographically in relation to Paulings Road, where Ferry Lane comes into Paulings Road?
Literally
Literally right down the street.
Yeah.
Flintlock Lane development has an exit to Ferry Lane.
Yeah, it's right at the cross street. This is Powderhorn Drive.
Powderhorn Drive, yeah.
Yeah, so Ferry Lane, and this driveway lines right up with Powderhorn Drive.
Yeah.
So Paulings would be to the top.
To the
and
top,
off
yeah.
of,
Paulings
off of the
frontier,
sheet.
yeah.
Right at the end of Ferry is where Nolan's
Is this
building
now where the Pulio's house used to be? Where the Pulio's owned the property?
I don't know.
On the left side of Ferry Lane?
Yeah,
No idea.
Is it?
it is. It's very close to that.
Okay, thank you.
So are those two existing houses there now?
This is the existing house that is here now, and it's four proposed houses. This is
So basically,
this is
they're
the existing house that is 101 Ferry Lane.
So you're asking for escrow for each individual house as opposed to the whole sub?
Yeah, when we finalize the agreements in the escrow will be in the amount, to place the proper monumentation on site, pins and monuments to set
Wait.
the lots.
What do you think,
And
Bill?
then the building permit came in.
Well, something has to be recorded so that it's not missed later on when the building permit application comes in. You know, we have to be sure, not on the plan.
That's why we were kind of going back and forth with Gilmore, and it was recommended to come to the board for some direction.
But they need to put up something up to these stakes, right? Is that,
Yes.
and how much?
Yes.
We're talking
Well,
$100. You can put the stakes in, but we'd have to do it. It'd be-
Well, he's saying that the applicant's going to install the pins and
All right, so
lines.
there's no need to for that.
That's correct.
So we.
There would just have to be a verification that they were actually
How
installed.
much your inspection fees, is that covering all this?
Well, normally it would be, but there would have to be stipulation that, they would.
The escrows would cover it later?
Exactly.
All right. All right, I think we can do it.
Okay.
Yeah, does there have to be some kind of a note on the plan?
Yeah, well,
yes.
that's what we were kind of working that out with Gilmore, so we'll talk with John Bill, get the proper notation, and we still have to get plans to John for a final sign off from him, so that's what we'll do.
Sounds
now.
like a good motion.
Do we have to make a motion or
Yes.
just, okay?
So I
Yeah.
make a motion conditioned upon your achieving consensus and approval from Gilmore and Associates with regard to the way forward that you choose to go.
Perfect.
Is that your motion?
That was my motion.
Escrowing
It's a little
per
unfair.
lot.
Let's start again. It's a motion to allow the escrow for this subdivision to be posted, deferred, and posted at the time of application for building permit, per lot.
Per lot.
In an amount determined to be acceptable by the township engineer.
That's my motion.
Second. I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next item is Valley Forge office colony conversion to apartments. Discussion.
Is there a representative from the?
Yes, he's here.
Oh.
He's been very
Oh,
patient.
okay.
No problem, no problem.
He has to be last.
I will try to. It's my own fault.
Is it just me or is it very cold in here?
It's very cold in here, and I turned the heat up, and I don't know.
Did you turn it up or down?
I will try to be mercifully brief.
It is freezing.
I turned it up. I turned it up to like 69, and it's freezing in here.
We need a generator.
Gee, it's still freezing in there.
I'm glad it's not just me.
I'm freezing.
Me too.
I just.
Don't you notice I've been sitting with my coat on half the night?
Oh.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'll try to be mercifully brief as I.
Well, thank you for your patience.
All right, let's let him, let
We're
the,
not here this evening to ask you for any kind of a formal decision. Basically, we want your opinion on a proposal that Valley Forge Office Campus is going to make to the zoning hearing board for a special exception. Again, we'd like to get your opinion, your thoughts, and feedback on our interpretation and words of what we want to do, so we can go in there, hopefully with your support of the project that the township can get behind.
Take a
That
copy.
would be a success for everybody. My name is Ron Callion. I know some of you from working with you in the past. I'm representing Valley Forge Office Campus. Here with me is Matt Welter. He is a representative of the property owner. Property at issue is located on 11 Davis Road. The property is about 2 acres, 1.9 acres, and in total. It's located in the neighborhood commercial zoning district. Currently, if you look at the site plan, there are 2 masonry buildings, about 17,200 square feet, more or less. They're currently being used for office only partially, office space. Both are about 75% vacant.
That was what I was gonna ask you.
Yeah.
They seem, I mean, they're always empty.
Our client's been, you know, using best efforts to try to lease them out. In this market, it's just unfortunately not working for them to lease it all up for 100% office space.
If I could interrupt you right there, would multi-use be entertained for this?
Well, that's why we're here, Mr. Morrison. Our client would like to use the buildings for multiple purpose. Under your ordinance, as a special exception, you're allowed to use above the ground floor for residential use if the ground floor is used for any permitted use in the zoning district, and currently office use is permitted. So what Valley Forge Office Campus would like to do is, if you look at your site plan, there are 2 buildings. The building on the right is Building 1, and the building on the left is Building 2. Again, there are 3 stories in each building. So for Building 1, the ground floor would be office, and the top 2 floors would be residential. Building 2, all 3 floors would be residential.
I think it's a great idea, and I drive past there 6 times a day.
The mix of the apartment units, there would be for the office space on the ground floor would be carved up as needed, as we're able to lease it. It wouldn't be totally occupied by the current tenants. We have some tenants in Building 2, which will move over to Building 1. There will still be some space left, and we'll carve that up and lease that up as best we can. Obviously, we want to see the space utilized. For the 5 floors of residential units, there will be 5 units on each floor.
What's the square footage of each one?
There will be 3 one-bedroom and 2 two-bedroom. The one-bedroom units will be 815 to 820 square feet, and the two-bedroom will be about 1,230 to 1,300 square feet. Mr. Walter's going to pass out the floor plans that we're looking at.
Have these plans been approved by the fire chief?
No,
And-
no, these are
Okay.
proposed. We'll go through all of that. Once we,
Yeah.
it would be a bit premature until we get actual permission from the zoning hearing board for the use.
Okay.
Then we'll go and we'll get all of the necessary approvals.
Now, when you go before the zoning hearing board, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe, don't they have to send notification to adjacent property owners?
Yes, yes, so they'll all have notice. We don't anticipate any issues with the adjoining property owners for
Kareem's
reasons we'll
fine
show
with
you
it.
later.
Well,
The
they're gonna-
property is
they're-
well screened and isolated pretty much from all the neighboring properties. The use is gonna be no more intense. In fact, there'll probably be a reduction in traffic from the residents coming in and coming out, rather than if the property was fully leased for office space, having many office workers come in and out, and clients for all the offices coming in and out of there. So if, in all actuality, for practical purposes, there's probably gonna be less of an impact, converting some of it to residential.
I would have to take issue with that a bit, because you're going from a pretty quiet business operation, and right now, since it's, what, 3/4 vacant, even quieter, to an apartment situation where, you know, sometimes people like to play last areas, you know, have parties.
The township has noise ordinances, so.
No, we don't.
if there aren't-
No, we don't.
Well, I think it would be just a general
There's still
nuisance
gas stations.
situation, then that could be enforced.
Yeah.
And also, it is a contemplated use. A
Yeah.
residential use is contemplated as a special exception, and when the township made that conscious decision to allow it as a special exception, they've taken into account that what comes along with residential use are, you know, the typical inconveniences of
All I'm trying to
folks living there.
give here is a heads up
I
relative
got it.
to
I got it.
adjacent property owners.
If you, give us the overhead. This is the overhead view, and you can see that the building itself is very isolated. If you look at the site plan, there's a significant distance between the surrounding areas.
One of the neighboring properties is actually a gas station, so.
Yeah. And across the street is a piece of Valley Forge Park.
And across the street is Valley Forge National Park.
Exactly.
So we really don't think we're gonna have much of an impact on the neighboring communities. The properties, you can see, is well screened already, and in addition to that, we're going to be beefing up the landscaping, you know.
That was the one thing I was gonna ask you
Yeah,
about. They're
I will
really,
submit a landscaping plan for you, even though I don't believe it'd be formally required, because we're not gonna need land development approval.
yeah.
We're not expanding the buildings. There are gonna be no, the only improvements are gonna be internal, the renovations. External, we may do some freshening up with some paint, power washing, some new shutters, something like that. but
Maybe a different
the
color
buildings
than
are
the
not going
white.
to expand.
they look very institutional painted.
Yes,
As
yes.
if,
Excuse me, I have a question, John.
Yes.
Is this enough parking for all these parking?
This is more than enough parking.
We'd have to look at that. We'd have
It's
to-
more than enough. The required parking
We'd
would
have to
be
look at that
86, we have
to answer your
113 spaces.
What's the rental rate?
The rental, I was gonna get to that. The rental rate, we're targeting young professionals, we're targeting the casino workers. For the one-bedroom apartments, we're looking at $1,300 to $1,400 a month.
is that fairly high?
It's good, it's good.
It's not the highest.
I don't-
Well, no, but they're really, it's not what it used to be. Before, historically, this area used to be $24 a square foot with a $19 a square foot submarket. Now, it's $19 a square foot with no submarket. So that's what we're looking at. So the one bedroom, $1,300 to $1,400, two bedroom, $1,850 to $1,950.
Does that include utilities?
No. Factor in, no, so they'll be paying utilities.
Okay.
Okay?
I'm sorry, but I don't think this parking looks like it's enough, but I'm glad you would look into that, so.
Yeah, we'll have, I mean, right now, the way we've calculated, we have 113 spaces, 86 are required.
Have you filed for a relief yet?
No. And we're gonna restripe the parking lot, we're gonna resurface the parking lot.
Good.
We're not talking about adding any lighting, no additional lighting is necessary, so we won't be shining it, there won't be more light shining on the neighboring properties. It's just gonna be all interior renovations, the buildings will not be expanded, footprints are gonna be the same. The buildings essentially are gonna operate as, even though they're two, separate physical buildings, they're gonna operate in a unified, kind of this unified facility for all functional purposes. They're gonna have one mail room, some, common areas gonna be utilized by both. They're gonna utilize the same parking area. They're gonna function as one unit. My client's also contemplating connecting the buildings with a walkway, a covered walkway, so folks can move in between,
Oh,
safely, from the elements. So really, the intent is to treat them as a unified facility. And under the zoning ordinance, the way the special exception is written, ground floor uses must be office with uses above, the above ground floors can be used for residential. Our interpretation would be that the ground floor use on building 1 is the ground floor, while the other uses above, floors 2 and 3 on building 1 are residential. Building 2 is actually situated uniquely on the property. It sits on a much higher elevation than building 1, so all 3 floors on building 2 are actually above the ground floor of building 1.
got it.
So we're looking at it as if, since we're treating these facilities functionally as one unit, and all of the floors on building 2 are above the ground floor on building 1, we like to use all 3 floors on building 2 for residential.
You have elevators in there too?
Pardon me?
You have elevators in there too?
We do.
We do. If I can show you just the elevation difference, you get a better picture for what I'm looking at. what I'm talking about.
You're not gonna use this for Section 8 housing, are you?
No.
Even if you don't rent it?
No, it will not be used for section.
Okay.
Boy, I didn't even think of that.
These 3 photos will show the elevation. The lower building is building 1.
Thank you.
Taught my kids how to drive this.
Yeah, as you can see, like the neighborhood commercial is almost on an island out there, surrounded by residential uses.
I just have to comment, you might be getting pushback on the interpretation of the second building.
Well,
Not-
that's why
not-
I'm here. I'm here to discuss it with you.
Yeah, I'm-
Because I realize you don't have the ultimate call on that, but we're floating the concept out there of what we would like to do. If this is something that, you know, you would not be opposed to our interpretation of doing that, and you can
Wouldn't be
get
opposed to
behind,
it, yeah.
that would be
Not at all.
fantastic. We would hope to get some support here this evening. I'm not sure if, you know, the board's in a position to give a formal letter of support.
Are
if
you
it would
opposed
do
to it?
that, or
Are
at
you
least
opposed to it?
a letter of non-opposition. But the concept with our interpretation, I'd
you
like to
are.
get your feedback on that, because if you're pushing back on it and saying, we don't like that, we don't agree with it, you know, zoning hearing board can do whatever they want, but it's not something that the township really wants to support and get behind, we'll reevaluate it and look at, you know, ground floor office on each. But we think we can do a much better job of getting that property fully utilized and productive by going with 3 floors of residential in building
Yeah.
two.
Why don't you ask for variance in your zoning case to include the need for retail, or office?
That's something to consider, you know, the alternative. But again, if we're getting the feeling from the township that concept from the get-go isn't really something that they want to get behind, you know, we would certainly reevaluate.
Do the neighbors behind and down in Sunoco, do they know about this? You heard from anybody?
We haven't heard from anybody, I'm not sure, Matt, have you-
I knew
No,
about
I
it.
don't think we.
Kareem knows about it, because ironically, Kareem is the guy who owns the gas station at the bottom of the hill, and he said, what do you hear about what they're gonna do? So the street, it's
Well-
out on the street, okay, I'll give it to you that
Well,
way.
Matt, Mr. Welter and Mr. Silverang, I believe, were at the planning commission meeting over the summer.
Yeah.
Mr. Morrison, I believe you were there as well, to kind of kick around this idea and some alternatives. I believe, you know, maybe a possible zoning change was discussed, cough, cough. We're not into doing that, and particularly after sitting here this evening, we're really not into doing that. But I think we're gonna go the special exception route, and the only question is, you know, whether we can get support for going in with our interpretation on 3 full floors of building 2 as residential, as
Is
opposed to
this
just
one
going in
considered
on,
building 2 and this
on,
one considered building 1?
office on both buildings
The
on
higher
the
up
ground
ones,
floor,
too.
and then 2 floors above each.
So
with-
this
I
would
can,
have
Bill can
3
address
floors,
that better, but I can,
and this would
as
have the 2
somebody who
floors.
has
Okay.
been living there for 42 years and passing Davis Road, Bill and I both live in the same neighborhood. I see this as an improvement, as opposed, because it was, for a commercial development, it's pretty cheesy, let me leave it at that kind of verbiage.
80
And
spaces.
with the kind of expansion that has gone on with the former, what was it, owned the Christian Center where your office is located? They sold that?
Baptist Convention?
The Baptist Convention, the circular building. There's been a huge increase in the amount of commercial real estate in King of Prussia. So therefore, the fact that this is 75% empty does not surprise me.
Right.
And I, you know, in terms of the aesthetics, if you paint it something other than white,
Sure.
okay, and if you retain the brick trim, something like that, it could be much more attractive than it is now.
Sure.
And what I like with the Schuylkill Township is a per capita median income of 83,000. Okay, so therefore, it would be nice to have something, not Section 8, but a place for young professionals.
And that would attract
for
professionals, they would live there,
people who
support the
have
local
jobs,
businesses.
yes.
And, you know, in our mind.
Kareem loves the
everybody
idea
benefits.
because
And my
the
concern,
deli in the park.
and my only concern is that it's neighborhood commercial, okay? And then if we give you a variance to put residential in that area, what's gonna happen to the Valley Forge Commons with all those spaces where those people can't rent those places out for businesses, they wanna put residential in.
Is
Are they
it
gonna
really
come-
empty in the commons? I
I don't
didn't know
know,
that.
I don't know.
First of all, that's zoned differently.
No, that's NC, it's NC.
Is it, oh, is it?
It's
okay.
NC,
All right.
NC.
Yeah.
They're both the same, so that's, if we give here yes, then they're gonna want it there.
Yeah, but it's a different.
It's different.
situation
It's a
there
whole
because
different
they're all one
context.
level.
It doesn't matter, they could say that you gave this one level,
Well,
I mean,
yeah.
or if they have the place where they have lofts, where they say, I'll get 2 levels.
That's why I have to say, I think it's important to stick.
I'm doing the devil's advocate
Yeah,
here.
no, and I think I agree with you,
Yeah.
because there's a reason for the ordinances, the way they're structured. And, it'd be my view that, you know, businesses should be on both floors, both buildings on the first floor.
Yeah, the only thing I would respond to that would be, we believe our situation may be a little bit different, given the proximity of the buildings in the back, that they are going to essentially operate functionally as a single unit, although physically they'll be separated by, what do you say now, 30 feet? maybe,
Yeah.
30 feet. We would consider connecting them, to, you know, even give it more of an appearance of being a collective unit, and therefore we would treat them collectively as one, quote-unquote, facility, which I think would separate us and allow you, if questioned, to be able to draw some kind of a distinction between, you know, our situation and somebody else's. But we hear you, and that's why we're here to discuss it, to get your thoughts, get some feedback, and determine, you know, which direction we want to head. As far as, you know, utilities, the properties are already hooked up with electric,
Yeah.
water, sewer, public utilities, so we're good to go there. We have no worries in that regard. Really, it's just going in on the special exception, meeting the criteria for a special exception, which are all general criteria on your ordinance, and I think, you know, we can surely show that, you know, the use is certainly not gonna be detrimental to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood. It's not gonna have a negative impact on the surrounding area. In fact, you're gonna have, you know, fully occupied buildings with hopefully young professionals in there, which will, you know, enhance the community, enhance the neighborhood, and just be a good situation for everybody, rather than having 2 buildings sitting there dark, 3/4 vacant.
Right.
What is your understanding of the notification requirement for the zoning board? And we've got a zoning hearing board member here.
Sure, all adjoining property owners will get notice per the requirements of the
My
ordinance. The
question goes
property
to
will be
my
posted and will be advertised.
My question goes to Oakwood Lane, and there are property owners that might as well be adjacent right across on the other side of the road.
Well, I'm sure word of mouth will get to them from the other neighbors, but
The closest is Great
adjoining
Thompson.
property owners are required to receive notice of the
And
hearing.
the other property owners, notification is optional.
The property will be posted, so they'll see, you know, the posting as they drive by, they wanna stop and take a look, and it'll be in the newspaper of general circulation.
Yeah, I think, and I can only speak for myself, I think it's a positive thing that it's gonna be residential, and I don't see the need for that building too to have a commercial space.
All right, do you favor they have that move forward, Jim?
Actually, can I just make one statement? I'd like to say
Of
to
course.
him, I like the fact that you're not changing the zoning in it, because I'm looking at our map and what's the NC stand for? Neighborhood commercial, thank you. We don't have big portions of that, and I like the fact that you're not changing it, so that if somebody several years in the future, decides to tear down these buildings, that stays the same, and you're not going for that. I appreciate that.
Okay, hang on then.
Yeah,
Jim,
well,
are you in favor for him to move forward?
I just, I think you need a variance for the second building.
Barbara, you said.
If you can get that, fine. If not,
There's a motion.
you know,
It's
the
just a
alternative.
discussion.
No, yeah, it's just a discussion. I would like.
No, but I'm trying to get the consensus, some knowledge, whether you want to move ahead or not. What do you think?
I think it's a terrific idea.
What do you think?
I'm okay with the idea. My more concern is if we set a precedent here, what's gonna happen at the other section? Because if we set that precedent, they're gonna say, well, if they can't rent it out to businesses, I'd rather rent it out to residentials. And a lot of those complexes in there have lofts and second stories.
Yeah, but.
It does,
I think it's apples and oranges,
What
Kevin.
you're referring to is the need for a granting of a variance, which would then allow the second building to have residential on the first floor. Variances, first of all, have a pretty high bar
Okay.
in order to be granted. And secondly, as I experienced it, granting of variances are pretty much standalone because it's situation dependent.
Right.
Sure,
And-
sure, but I believe here the burden may be a little higher, because this is kind of getting in there on the whole use variance and improving hardship.
I'm just going to the precedent-setting comment they made.
Yeah.
So-
Well, I got it, I'll make
No, I
some
just-
facts we can distinguish.
I just wanted to ask. I mean,
Yeah.
I just don't want, I don't wanna do something
Good-
that.
Good question.
Yeah, yeah. No, thank you, Jim.
Are you in favor of, Martha,
They
move
can
on?
move on, yeah, move forward.
Because it's senseless to have them move forward if the people
No,
are,
move forward with it. I just wanna make sure that we
Good
dot
luck.
our,
You're the only
we
one
dot
that
our
says
i's
no,
and
then.
cross our
Our
t's.
our
Well,
zoning hearing board is tough.
We're certainly not going to oppose you, I don't think.
He's got to make a case before the zoning hearing board.
Yeah.
Sure,
Well, he
sure,
could.
but I wanted to get your feedback. See
well, that's
if-
what I'm trying to get for you.
And I appreciate it. I don't know if folks generally come in front of you for this type of thing, if you issue, a letter of non-opposition, or if you would issue a letter of support, or say
It's
something
more
in there
just a
about what
silent
you want.
thing.
Bill, if you want to address this?
Yeah, and Ron knows this, we talked about it. We try not to issue letters of support because we feel we're invading the province of the zoning hearing board. We don't have to tell them what to do. They do what they do. However, there is this statement of neutrality, which in the zoning world is the equivalent of a quasi-support because you're not saying you oppose it. So it's a funny dynamic, but zoning lawyers know that you don't get an approval, except in a rare case, that a neutrality statement is a win for Ron. The thing he's afraid of is that you send me to oppose it and then make a case and object, and that's.
I don't want to vote against Bill.
Well-
That's how it works.
So, would you be comfortable if I made a motion of
No,
net
I don't think we need a
neutrality here, or
motion.
not?
I don't think we need a
In the
motion.
past, we've never made a motion.
You don't have to do anything.
Yeah, we don't have to do
This is a
anything.
discussion.
Right.
It's just a
Well,
discussion.
you were saying you could issue a letter of
Here's what I
neutrality.
suggest, and let Ron file his application, see if there's a firestorm. If not, you can always, if you vote now to not oppose it, and then things come up later where the neighbors are going crazy, then you pass the motion to not oppose it. I would suggest, let Ron move ahead with his file.
That's all he's asking, and that's what we say, is let him move forward, but
Let him move forward, let's take a look, and then at another meeting, if you're satisfied that.
That's right.
If you've thought about it, then pass the motion of neutrality, and then he can walk into the zoning hearing board with that.
that's right.
All right?
In my opinion, I think we just ought to let the applicant proceed with the zoning hearing board, and let the zoning hearing board make the call.
Fine.
Okay,
So, just so I'm clear, bottom floor use, you prefer the office.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see some
and
consistency.
I don't prefer the office. Jim and I differ on that opinion.
Okay, and Mr. Perry,
Fine.
how are you with, like, the bottom floor?
I've
office?
said fine.
Are you okay?
I'm okay with it.
Okay. You okay? All good?
Okay.
Thank you again for your
time.
patience.
Thank you.
No problem, and I'll be letting Mr. Brennan know when we file our application. It will probably be within the next couple of weeks.
And now, assuming you get the zoning hearing board approval on this is a building permit situation, I'm presuming, right?
Yeah, we're not changing the wall, it's building.
Correct. No land development approval. If you like, you can submit just for your information versus the landscaping we're gonna do. The enhancement we're gonna do to the landscaping, as you can see from the aerial view.
Might help your
there's a
case in front of the
significant
zoning hearing board.
Yeah, we'll have that for them as well.
Okay.
Thank you for your time this
Thanks for
evening.
waiting. Thank you.
I know it's been a long night.
It's not over yet.
Any more 2-minute reports? Anything on additional business? All right, public participation for anything not on the agenda.
Have you done any work on the noxious weed ordinance?
No.
When he mowed it, so it took the pressure off. He did get it mowed. You're aware of that, right?
Does anyone know who mowed it?
No.
I think Mary does.
No, I do not, Pete, and I told you that.
Yes, you did.
Actually, you know
told me
what,
that.
I
You
do.
told me that Kim Colquitt.
I did
Yeah.
not tell you Kim Colquitt mowed it.
Actually,
You
said-
did too. You told
I
me
did
he
not.
mowed it over the
Pete,
weekend. That's
Peter,
why I
I
put you.
Pete,
Peter.
Pete,
Okay,
Pete,
okay.
I had a
Peter.
conversation with Kim, he did not mow.
He did not mow it. He
And I see
thinks
Kim
that,
on a monthly basis.
What difference does it make?
It doesn't matter, he didn't mow it, because his tractor was broken.
Yeah,
Okay.
he didn't mow
Yeah.
it. He said some
Regardless.
farmer that lives
He's gonna
in
farm it.
East
They're
Pikeland
gonna farm it next year.
wants
Who
to
did it?
farm it next year.
Some farmer is going to farm it next year, they're gonna farm it, so you don't have to worry about the noxious weed.
Okay, so how long is this gonna go on? We gotta wait another 2 years before we get the noxious weeds again? Or-
No.
Or you
No, no,
gonna
once
come
it's
up with an
farmed,
ordinance?
Once it's
No.
farmed,
What?
once it's farmed.
I would like to,
You won't have to
I
worry
could
about the
plan
noxious
on
weeds.
making a proposal to my colleagues if we can find a way to do it twice a year, once in June and once at this time of year, but not every week or every month, but twice a year.
We'll take care of our piece that the township owns, which where a portion of it, the noxious weed came from our section.
Are we talking about Pickering Preserve?
Pickering Reserve.
Yeah.
But
There, if there's noxious, well, from my understanding, there's noxious weed on it.
We're talking about what he
We'll
was
take
talking
care of
about.
that. The Levine property is, from my understanding, is gonna be, farmed. So that noxious weed will not be a problem due to the fact that they're gonna farm it,
that would be lovely.
Yeah.
okay? So you won't have that issue. Now, along the roadway,
When,
I was told to
come in
me,
front of you and say, look, we're gonna farm it?
they don't have to.
No?
It's zoned as a farm, and zoned so they can.
Farming
farm-
residential.
Right, farming residential, excuse me. So they can, if they wanna farm it next year, and not the year after, and then the year after that, they can, because it's zoned that way.
I just have to make a comment on, assuming that the farming is a great idea, and
Yeah.
I hope it happens, okay? But if it doesn't happen, there's another issue of a conflict in interpretation, I have to say, from the agricultural department's concept of when you cut the weeds, okay, versus what landscapers and naturalists know works well. And there's some discrepancy in timing.
Well, I
That's
think
not-
we have people on the EAC that knows that.
Exactly, but what they're recommending is not what the Department of Agriculture recommended
Oh,
in their
no.
letter.
So?
That's a problem.
So what?
Why is it that you were adamant about enforcing that we maintain the trail and our open space? And, you know, you're not doing anything with Levin or Colquitt?
Pete, we've already been to the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania with Levin's. We spent a
No, I
boatload of
understand
money
that.
fighting
It took
them.
how many years?
And, you know, so we're a little reluctant to get into the same battle with them again. They're well represented, they're accusing us of being too hard on them, believe it or not. So, you know, we have to be careful and walk carefully, do the right thing. If we have to go, we'll go. But I'm not sure the township wants to spend $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 again to fight the Levins. We've already been down this.
We spend $30,000 a year on maintaining the open space.
Okay.
So we're not the ones that made the mistake and allowed the two farm owners to be outside the box.
We
We
didn't,
make
well, hold
that.
on, Pete, we didn't either. This
And
is-
we didn't
No, no,
either.
no, you
None of
didn't
us
either,
were
but-
there.
But you can do something about it, and you haven't and won't.
We can't do it. What can we do? We can't
Oh,
put them back in the
please.
association.
Okay, well, yeah, it's like beating a dead horse.
As long as you're speaking on this topic, I have a request of Pickering Glen, which is to further accommodate the residents on the other side of Pot House. You've got a weed strip between your walkway and the road. They would very much like to see that cleared. Apparently, the farmer or whoever cleared the land isn't about doing that, but somebody ought to do it, because it's a generation.
So why don't you do it? Why doesn't the township do it?
It's not our property.
It's not ours either.
It's not ours either.
Now, wait a minute, does not the Pickering Glen property go to the cartway?
No. None of that is our property.
Nope.
We require to maintain a strip both sides of the path. Just alongside the path and not the road. That's not our property, we're required to maintain.
What is the fence line?
That's their property.
It's Levin's.
It's
All
Levin.
it is.
But that fence line continues, does it not, up your way?
We don't own any of that, it's all
Nope.
Levin's property. That trail is not on, not ours.
Because he's got a finger that comes around? Okay.
Yeah. leave that as it may for now. If this happens, that's a good thing.
It's a very good thing.
Because, you know, it's a beautiful thing when you can see past those weeds. But secondly, and more importantly, pertaining to the development, if they build the school and they make another road or expand the road through the right-of-way down at the corner of 29 and Pot House Road, there is a stormwater area there. John,
There's a basin there.
when are we gonna know how they're gonna build this without it affecting the plans that we've had since we've been there?
Pete, as soon as I get the plans, I'll know, and I'll present it, to the township, and it'll be discussed at the planning commission meeting. We haven't gotten any plans that show how that intersection is going to be reconfigured.
Does it
Good
will it
night.
make any difference if we have homeowners that are still having water in their basements and sump water pumps running all the time when it rains? Will it make any difference if they come and talk about the problems they're still having, and now they're gonna expand that with, less area for the water? And also, what are they gonna do with,
Pete, I haven't seen any plans. I can't
Okay.
tell you what they're
So-
going to do.
so
From what
do
all I
you
can
have to
tell you,
approve them
all I
before they?
No, all I can tell you is that the school district's traffic consultant is in the process of preparing what are called highway occupancy permit plans. All right, and those plans will show the reconfiguration of the intersection and how they're gonna handle the drainage in and around that area. Those plans come to our office, we review them on behalf of the township, but they also get reviewed at PennDOT's office in King of Prussia. Okay, so the applicant, the school district, will have to address our comments, the planning commission's comments, any comments that the board has, any comments that the staff has, as well as comments that PennDOT will have.
What are PennDOT's responsibilities for stormwater management? What law
What was
do they
that,
have to
Mary?
adhere to?
My understanding is they try to get the municipalities to take ownership of stormwater management facilities and maintenance of those facilities.
almost midnight.
What about the trees that they're gonna take down, the oak trees in the area where they're gonna build the fields? I know that I've seen your writings about, taking down a lot of trees.
By the way, they're not all oak trees there.
What?
They're not all oak trees.
Okay, so are they gonna
They're
go
300
around the
300
oak
trees will be
trees, or are they
removed,
gonna
not
just
all
take
oak.
them down?
What's that?
Are they gonna go around the oak trees, or just gonna take down the ones that aren't oak?
They're gonna take down trees that are in the way, okay?
Right, all of them, right?
Yeah, but they're not all oak trees. There's some pines and there's some other species.
No,
Not all oak trees.
And it was all brought up at the EAC meetings also.
What happened to the enthusiasm about all this open space? Where did it go? He left.
I've got some news for you, okay? Act 153 of 1996, which is the Open Space Act, would you believe, includes recreation facilities as open space.
So can we build a facility in that area that we have to spend $15,000 a year? Can we build a facility now that they're gonna can we build a field there?
Build a field where?
Right out front where we have to mow and spend $15,000. Can we build a facility now that you've given them?
Well, I'm not sure. If you just go by the state law and look at the definition of open space, you could put a ball field there and it will still be considered open space.
It
Can't light it.
would be on the conditions of plan approval, Pete, what would be permitted to be built, if
Yeah.
anything,
Yeah.
in those open space
Yeah,
areas.
yeah.
Thanks.
All right, I want to, we want to move into, yes, sir.
I'm Tom Lemker, I'm also with Pickering Glen, and I just wanted to just bring something to your attention to think about maybe. But with the new school going in and the expansion of Pot House, they're going to be taking a lot of our property. We haven't been told exactly how much and what, if any, compensation it might be. But there are going to be moving poles closer to the walking trail that we have and maintain. And there's gonna be a lot more traffic on that walking trail. And I guess as a resident, not only of the homeowner association, but also the township, I'm questioning why the homeowner association be paying all of the maintenance for that trail. You know, seems to me it's a township property, a township asset. And maybe the township should consider taking over the maintenance of that, and not to put the burden on the homeowners. So I'm just pulling that out for something to think about.
That was the deal that was made, moved there indifferent years ago.
I know, we didn't have a school across the street.
I understand it.
Yeah, it's that things have changed. So I'm just throwing that out as something to think about, as a matter of fairness to the town, to the homeowner association, and what's appropriate for the township to be maintaining, including the weeds you talked about, you know, maintain that too.
Well, let me ask you this, and I understand where you're coming from, and I live in the Meadows of Valley Forge, and we have sidewalks in the front of our house. Now, from my understanding, you guys don't have sidewalks, right?
On one side.
On one side, okay, well, we have it on both sides, okay? It's the responsibility of the homeowner to take care of that sidewalk. Should I be asking this board to take care of the sidewalk?
Yeah, that's a different situation.
Why is it different?
This
You
is
got
on
a
our
trail.
land-based property. This is,
It's,
the township required that the developer put a walking trail, whatever kind of trail it is. walking trail.
that's the kicker, the
Go
developer
along
made
the
that
Pothouse
deal.
Road,
Yep,
and that's the one that we are
Yep.
maintaining as a homeowner association. And that's the one that's gonna be used by school children and other people using those facilities.
I know.
It's not in our subdivision, it's on the
Yeah.
outskirts of our subdivision along Pothouse Road.
These are my,
That's fine.
But that's,
I'll tell you,
I'll look at that
Horseshoe
later.
Trail dates back to 1930, and it's still taken care of by volunteers, not Schuylkill or to a different township. Period, end.
Yes, but we have a school now.
Excuse
A big
me?
school going across the street.
It
Fields
doesn't
across
matter.
the street, a lot of people.
It doesn't matter.
More cost to maintain. Who should have that cost?
Just-
Volunteers, or the homeowner association, or township?
Just because someone is treading on a pavement, something that is paved, is not gonna wear it down.
I wasn't.
no member of the general public shall have the right to use any portion of the common areas except the walking trail on the basis of this easement. The walking trail shall be maintained in proper condition by the township at its expense.
Pete,
as a
stop right
condition
there.
of this
That's the
easement.
first draft,
Okay.
that's not the final draft.
This is what I got when I paid for my
Yes,
house.
that's what
and
Pulte
signed and
gave you.
got my deed.
That's what Pulte gave you. The recorded plan says that the maintenance obligation is on the HOA. So don't pull out one here.
Whose obligation was it?
Pulte gave you that document. Pulte lied to you, apparently.
Lied for us,
Lied to you.
Lied to you.
and you did nothing about it.
You didn't know about it.
Let's put that aside.
You also didn't know that the board member who sat on your board made the decisions about our development and signed an agreement outside the box.
We've had this discussion many times, and, you know.
And you're gonna hear it
When
again
you
and
come
again
in and
because I'm allowed to.
When you come in and read a document that you know is incorrect, then you lose my respect.
It's not incorrect. You know it.
Let's look at things the way they are today.
Mhm.
We were, the documents that were presented to us, yes, they were like that, but we've accepted it. We've accepted the trail, even though we went through a lot for 12 years to get that trail the way it is today. Now suddenly, we're throwing another curveball saying, we're gonna have a school, the kids are gonna use your trail. That's a different scenario now. It is a different scenario.
Why would the kids use your trail?
Because the superintendent has specified to us that they will be able to cross and use the trail to go to the Y and wherever they want to go. So there'll be more foot traffic on our trail. And this is the only thing we're saying is, they're gonna take 10 feet of our property. The last time, that's what they said to us. Okay, they're gonna take 10 feet. Why not take the whole path, and then we're not responsible for it? That's all we're asking. We have done everything that you've asked for the 12 years, and we've fought to get that path the way it is today, because it was impossible to maintain it otherwise. Now, if you're going to be building a school, you heard everybody in here how much we object to so many of the things that are going on across the street. But all that traffic is going to come into our property. So why not help us out?
We proceeded from a point where the developer put in the trail, and the township, wait a minute, now, let me finish. The developer put in the trail, it was not, let's say, consisting of the proper materials as
Yeah,
advertised.
we've gone through all of that.
Yeah, no.
And we helped
oh,
you.
Wait a minute
That's
now.
all behind us.
We gave you half of the cost of the
Well,
payment.
that's
okay?
behind us,
We-
but now what's in front of us has changed, and we're just saying, we've got this trail.
I'm not too sympathetic. I agree with Barbara. Kids walking on pavement is not gonna wear the pavement down.
What about the insurance on the trail?
What
That's comes with a.
What did you, I'm sorry, I
You-
didn't.
You've already insured it, right? I mean, you knew that you had to do that, I presume, because the trail
Why don't
is
you take it over?
designated for public use.
You're so adamant about open space, why don't you take that property off our hands?
Because the whole deal for Pickering Glen, was based on trade-offs, okay? Otherwise, we.
Jim, it's midnight.
Yeah.
Everyone is getting very tired.
We spent, what?
The short answer is it's zoned FR. That's the short answer.
And we spent hours with you. Norm and I met with you when I first came on the board, and we have compromised when you had an inferior
So why do you
surface.
take over the responsibility? Why?
Thank you for your suggestion. We'll consider it, but don't repeat yourself.
Mr. Kelly, you already had your
Did I?
session.
I was in the other part of the meeting.
You-
This
when-
is
when
the
you had the
public-
agenda.
This is the public participation.
Mr. Keller,
Better get used to these long meetings because they're gonna start coming.
does this have something else to do?
No, this is a lot, this has to do with ordinances again. No, shame on all the people that had to leave because,
Yeah, you don't have a stage
you know,
anymore.
all of, yeah, I need a stage, right. What I bring out is the truth. You know,
As you
That's enough,
perceive it.
Mr.
we wouldn't, none of this would have been necessary tonight, but you people, you officials of this township, you decided that you were God.
Oh,
You decided.
All right, that's enough.
I think
Wait
he's
a
out of
minute.
order.
You're out of order,
In
Mr. Keller.
1776.
You're out of order, Mr. Keller.
Who were ruled by the British.
I
They
make
were
a motion
denied
that we go into
representation.
executive session.
They were denied
We're breaking.
representation.
We're
And
breaking.
you know what happened?
There
There's
was
a
second
revolution.
recess.
We're gonna take a recess.
All right, I'm gonna call a recess to the meeting.
5 minutes.
Can we end the meeting? We have an executive session, it's after midnight.
Yes.
Topic.
I have a right to talk.
You have-
This is a democracy, remember that?
There are limits to.
Oh, no, there's no
Yes,
limit.
there are
There was a
limits.
guy here that's 2 meetings ago to stand here for a half hour over a pool project. Imagine a pool project?
We call a recess.
Who dismissed me?
We did.
We did.
Chief?
Get all this in record. I want all this
Good, thank you.
record that they were stopping me from talking. This ain't the
We're going to call the BOS back into session. We discussed personnel and litigation issues. Do I hear a motion?
I make the motion to lower the Valley Park escrow amount from 484 to 125,000.
125,260.97.
Thank you. 125,260, what?
.97.
0.97 cents?
97 cents.
You don't want to round that to $1?
No.
Okay.
Okay, I will second, I will second Kevin's motion.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay,
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
okay.
I
Second
second that.
All in favor? Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's raining.